It has been a full year since we began worshiping from our living rooms or our dining rooms or our bedroom or wherever it is we are. A full year living in this pandemic state, mask wearing, many working from home, schooling from home, many getting food delivered instead of our regular trips to the store. So much has changed. And yet, so much has stayed the same. You know what is one thing that never changes? Laundry. There is always laundry. There's always dirty clothes, even when all the loads are washed and folded, because we're still wearing clothes, right? So there is always laundry. Pandemic or no pandemic, that has not changed. This week, while I was doing laundry, I was multitasking and also doing some sermon prep. And so I was reading and or listening to the scriptures as I was folding the laundry this week. And as I often do, I checked them out in different versions. And I started with the Psalm, as written by Nan Merrill, the version that Marlene read for us this morning. Have mercy on me, O gracious one, according to your steadfast love. Forgive me according to your abundant kindness, forgive me where my thoughts and deeds have hurt others. Lead me in the paths of justice. Guide my steps on paths of peace. So good. And then I was folding up some socks, and I listened to the New Revised Standard Version, which is the Bibles that sit here in the church in our pews. And it reads like this at the beginning of Psalm 51. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love. According to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgression. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. And then I moved on to the towels and the Message paraphrase. Generous in love, God give grace. Huge in mercy, wipe out my bad record. Scrub away my guilt, soak out my sins in your laundry. I know how bad I've been. My sins are staring me down. I stopped folding my laundry. Soak out my sins in your laundry. I was imagining those stubborn grease stains that just won't come out, those grass-stained knees, those spills of spaghetti sauce on the white shirt. Imagining God taking out all those stubborn bits of ours and soaking them away. The Message version continued a little later with this, soak me in your laundry and I'll come out clean. It strikes me that it's this message that Jeremiah is saying is written on our hearts. The message that with God, we are clean. With God, we are whole. With God, we are good and loved and worthy. We are not stuck in the dirty laundry pile. This whole season of Lent, we have been talking about God's promise. God's promise to Noah, made known in that rainbow, not to flood the earth again. God's promise to Abraham and Sarah to bless them and all the generations after them. God's promise through Moses to be with the people and the people agreeing to follow those 10 commandments. God's promise of grace and love made known in the Psalm and the book of Ephesians. And today we learn of a new covenant, a promise that is now written on our hearts, as Jeremiah tells us. The Reverend Catherine Willis Pershey writes these words: "I suspect that God is diligent," she says, "and detail-oriented when it comes to laundry. God reads those tags outlining fabric care. God even reads the machine manuals and knows what all of the cycles mean. God never forgets that God put a load in before breakfast, never leaves it to mildew all day long. God plucks the favorite shirt out of the pile and pre-treats it, thereby avoiding the dreaded permanent stain. God does the laundry as a generous act of love, bereft of resentment and free of fury." She said, we don't need a domesticated God, but perhaps we do need a domestic one. Friends, it seems to me that this is our God. The God who writes love on our hearts. The God who makes us clean and whole. The God who promises to be our God. And if this Lent has taught us anything, it's reminded us that God keeps working with us to make sure that we get the message, that we are blessed and loved and made whole. So if we miss the sign of the rainbow, if we forget that new life and blessing comes with every spring flower and new baby, it is in the very beating of our hearts. Pandemic or no pandemic, this remains. Dirty laundry, giant pile, or everything is neat and folded, the good news does not change. That we can cling to. Let it dwell within us so that we never lose sight of it. May it be so. Amen.